It's that time again, third grade. It's time for Rump. Oh, Rump over here. We are on chapter 29, and there are 32 chapters. So I'm going to try to get through 2 chapters today so that we have this week and next week, and we'll be done with Rump. How exciting. Then you can take an AR test. Okay. So he's going to try to guess his name, right? He told her it started with Rump, or had something to do with Rump. So chapter 29, guessing games for finding names. Sheepshanks, Crookshanks, Spindleshanks. I allow Opal to rattle off any ridiculous name she wanted. The fact that my name actually began with Rump still hadn't gotten through. Either way, it would all come to nothing, but at least it kept her from crying. Gibbly Shanks, Woolly Shanks, Pepper Shanks? The door opened and the miller entered. Opal crumbled up her list of silly names and jumped away from me. But the miller took notice of her. He went right to the gold and started to refill his sack. I think we will exceed the king's expectations, even if we do not give him all the gold. He laughed wickedly as he stuffed the sack with gold. Give me your best wicked laugh. Wah-ha-ha-ha-ha. Good one. Yes, he'll never notice the difference. Opal glared at her father. What makes you think you can keep any of it? I could tell him, I am the queen. The miller smiled. You could tell him just as easily as I could tell him it was not you who spun the gold. How do you think the king would take that? Opal clamped her mouth shut and looked away. The miller cast his gaze on me, and I quickened my foot on the treadle. Then he left. As soon as the doors had snapped shut, Opal shouted off another trio of names. Bindershakes, Spindershakes, Thistleshanks. She went through 100 shank names and continued to speak to servants and messengers through the crack of the door as they handed her new lists. Some of the names made me glad I was called Rump. Who would want to name their child Peabody? I'd rather be Rump than a Peabody. Opal kept busy with the names unless the miller was present, and when Archie needed feeding, she seemed quite peeved to have to stop. She had become so obsessed with finding my name, she forgot why she was looking for it in the first place. In the meantime, the miller was piling the gold in little stacks and counting them. Frederick and Bruno helped him, but the miller slapped their hands if they lingered on the skeins for too long. Sometimes they'd watch me spin with a kind of awe, and I almost thought they were admiring me, but their eyes were only on the gold. Red tried to communicate with me at first, making faces and shaking her head this way and that, but after a while she gave up and sank into herself, just staring into the fire and sleeping in small stretches. Oswald gave Red and me stale bread and moldy cheese to eat, but Red didn't eat any. And I worried. I stuffed the food in my mouth and spun faster. Even if it was vile, I needed the energy to finish my task. Opal continued guessing names for me. Adelbrecht, Heaterblecht, Zettelmeyer? That is not my name, I said as I continued to spin. With the whir, whir, whir of the wheel, I heard rumple, 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 trapped, trapped, trapped. Ferdinand? Ferdinango? Egenhard? That is not my name. Opal began to despair, and my guilt deepened. I had given her false hope. Maybe I had given myself false hope. As if there really could be more to me than just a tangled mess. Whir, 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 rumple, 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 trapped, trapped, trapped. As the second day grew to a close, Opal rocked back and forth on the floor again, and the boards creaked and lifted. Creak, snap, creak, snap, whir, whir, whir. A few times I actually saw people through the cracks in the floorboards, moving around in the room below. I heard the sound of chatter and recognized a familiar voice. It was Martha, the cook who had helped me when I fell out of the tower. It was sort of funny that I was right above her now. I strained my ears to catch any good gossip she might have, but I couldn't hear well enough to make sense of it. The gold was now stacked higher than the straw, far above my head, but heaps and heaps of straw still remained. I couldn't see the end of it, and once I finished, I knew the miller would find new ways to manipulate me. There had to be a way out. Red had said there was a way. Her granny had said so too. There was something I was missing. I just knew it, but I couldn't see what. I couldn't think in this small space filled with straw and gold. I needed air. I needed rest. I closed my eyes and put my head down on the wheel. I would only rest for a minute. Creak, snap, creak, snap. My head jerked up at the sound. Opal was rocking back and forth again, lifting the floorboards. I looked around, dazed. Gold and straw were everywhere, and out the window I could see it was dark. I had fallen asleep. The second day was gone. How late was it? I lifted my arms to stretch. I hadn't moved all day from the spinning wheel, not even to answer the calls of nature. Nature was screaming at me, and so was my brain. I had the strange feeling that I'd just awoken from a dream, but I couldn't remember what it was. I was thinking of destiny and names. The Witch of the Woods and my Stiltskins, my aunt and the Rumples, the trolls and their magic hoard, the apple tree, my mother. There were ideas flying in my head. Answers, but they couldn't get. There were ideas flying inside my head. Answers, but they couldn't get out in this room. My brain needed open space. I've got to go outside, I announced. Nature calls. Can't it wait? I've been holding it for a long time. I might have an accident and get it all over the straw, and I'm not sure I can make gold out of peas straw. The miller's eyes flashed, but he waved me away. Frederick, Bruno, take your friend outside. Make sure he's well protected. The brothers sat up and smiled malevolently. They had done very little the past 2 days, besides watch me spin gold and run mindless errands for the miller. They were restless and bored, and that was a dangerous state for Frederick and Bruno. Yes, said Frederick, it will be our pleasure. And take that baby with you, said the miller. I would hate for it to get lonely. He laughed heartily, and Opal whimpered. I gritted my teeth. This would not be helpful. Bruno untied me and hoisted the baby basket into my arms. When we were outside, Frederick and Bruno hovered next to me as I relieved myself by the tree. I don't need your help. It's for your safety, said Frederick. We wouldn't want you to get eaten by trolls. Trolls. A little egg cracked in my brain. I knew some trolls. Trolls that would smell magic and hoarded it and guarded a poison apple tree. A Stiltskin. No, I said. That would be awful. The egg cracked all the way open, and suddenly my idea emerged. It was a little crazy and dangerous, perhaps, but I had to do something. You know, I said, considering my words carefully, there are other things out there besides trolls. Just beyond the gates, a little ways in the eastern woods, I've actually hidden a stash of gold. Gold? Bruno licked his lips as if I'd just said lamb chops. Gold, I said, I can't carry it all on my own, but if you help me, I'll split it with you. Their eyes glittered. Bruno nodded, but Frederick pulled back. How do we know you're not tricking us just so you can run away? I pointed to the castle. Red's still in there. I wouldn't run away. And besides, it's dangerous in those woods. There might be wolves or witches or trolls out there. I just thought I might have a better chance if you were with me, because you're soldiers now. I could wait until I'm done with your father, but then he might find out about it and want the gold for himself. Frederick whispered something in Bruno's ear, and a greedy grin spread across his face. We'll help you, they said at the same time. But we get most of it, said Frederick. There's 2 of us and 1 of you. What do you need with gold? I don't need much, I said. Frederick pushed me to start moving. You'll get as much as you're worth, but... Ooh, chapter 30. The Stiltskin. Oh my gosh. I can't wait to see what happens. Because Frederick and Bruno were soldiers and something like nobility, they were able to get a carriage with horses from the stable. Better if we're quick, said Frederick. I'll send a message to Father to tell him you're having a hard time. Bruno snorted. Frederick found a gnome and gave him the message, and then we left. When I had nothing with me, the journey to the troll's forest had taken half a day. He was so slow. But with the carriage, we were there within half an hour. Bruno whipped the horses so they went faster, and we bounced along the road. Archie woke with the whips and the roar of the carriage and started to wail. I tried to rock him and shush him, but he was awkward in my arms, and he cried even louder. "Where is this place?" Bruno yelled over the baby's wails. "You said it was just beyond the gates." Bruno looked through the trees as if a wolf might jump out at them at any moment. "Slow down, just a bit further." We came to a bend in the road that I recognized. "Stop," I told him, and Archie quieted as the carriage became still. We stepped down and walked off the road. "Through there," I said, pointing into the blackness of the trees. Frederick and Bruno halted at the edge of the road. "In there?" they asked at the same time. Frederick's voice cracked. "I had to hide the gold in a place where no one else would find it." I walked into the trees. A few moments later, I heard their footsteps behind me. We walked slowly and quietly until we came to the apple tree. Its branches bowed, heavy with the weight of the poison fruit. I really hoped Bork was still trying to catch a pet, even though he already had nothing. Gently, I sat the baby down on the ground. "Wait here," I told them, and approached the tree. There was very little light to see, but I searched around the tree until I saw it, the snare. Very carefully, I placed my foot into the trap. Snap, swip, slunk! The rope yanked me off the ground, and I screamed louder than necessary to attract the trolls. Frederick and Bruno's jaws dropped. A few moments later, rustling came from the bush behind me, and the first of the trolls appeared, ugly and smelly as ever. "Trolls!" I shouted. "Help! Trolls! Trolls! Help me!" Frederick and Bruno squealed and ran, flailing their arms. They didn't even pause to pick up their baby nephew. They bolted through the trees toward the carriage. I barely heard the crack of the whip or horse's hooves above their screams. In a few moments, the noise faded. "What's this?" said one of the trolls. "Didn't you learn anything from last time?" "Hello, Bork." Archie began crying. "And you brought extra." "Well, we can always use a side dish." You don't want that," I said. "Far too bitter." "Do you have any sludge?" "We always have sludge." And he cut me down. The first part of the plan had worked. I was out of the castle, and Frederick and Bruno were gone. But that was the easy part. Now I had to find a Stiltskin before it was too late. Something told me I was in the right place. I was greeted with many snorts and snarls from the trolls. Slop now had a wolf pelt on his head instead of his deer antlers. "How'd you get that?" I asked. "He ate the apples," said Slop. "Wolves don't eat apples," Bork corrected. "He died of starvation. Didn't even have any meat on his bones, because them apples ate it all up with their poison." Slop pushed down the wolf head so its teeth were hanging over his eyes. Then he sniffed me. "You still reek like magic." I wanted to tell him he reeked of troll, but I didn't. Mard hugged me when she saw me, which was comforting despite the smell. "What is this?" she said, pointing to Archie in the basket. "That's Archie," I said without any explanation. "He's horribly clean, and so are you." Mard took Archie from my arms, and Gorp and Grot tackled me into the ground and smeared mud on my clothes. As I stood up, a fat donkey came trotting toward me. "Nothing!" He brayed and pushed me with his head right back down into the mud. We named him Horace. "He likes to eat worms," said Grot. I laughed. Nothing's name is Horace, and he likes to eat worms? Well, he looked happy. Maybe having a real name made him a better donkey. Mard pushed a cup of sludge into my hands. "You need fattening," she said. "You grew." Then she dipped her fingers into the sludge and fed some to Archie. I thought for sure he would start crying. But he didn't. He slurped and gurgled. The young prince had a taste for worms. This'll make him a strong boy. "Why have you come back?" asked Bork. "And who are those boys?" Those were the queen's brothers. "Can they make gold from straw too?" Bork asked. They didn't look too smart. "They can't make gold, neither can the queen." I took a deep breath. I can, though. All the slurping and grunting and snorting stopped, and the trolls stared at me. So I told them my story, all of it, the spinning, my mother, my name, and how I had come to gain Archie. No wonder you reek of magic, said Slop. You were born in the stuff. Why can't you give him back if you don't want him? Slop asked. Because she promised him in exchange for the gold, so I have to take him. That's part of the magic. Why would she promise her baby? Asked Gorp. I don't know. Humans do a lot of things that don't make sense. The trolls grunted in agreement and raised their cups. Archie started to cry, and Mard bounced and rocked him. Too clean, poor thing. She took handfuls of mud and slathered it on his face, so he looked like a piglet in a mud puddle. I thought for sure he was going to go into hysterics, but instead he stopped crying and drifted off in Mard's arms as she rocked him. Watching this, I felt a pang in my chest. A baby should have a mother, and a mother should have her baby. That is, if destiny works out the way it's supposed to. I need to find a way to give Archie back to Opal. That's why I had come here. I have something to show you, said Bork. What is it? Something I discovered a little while ago. Let's go to the tree. He took a torch through the trees until we came to the clearing with the apple tree, standing so still and perfect in the dark. Bork reached up, picked up an apple, and held it to the light of his torch. This tree grew from the seeds of a poisoned apple. So I've never tried one, but a few weeks ago I saw a strange thing. A family of raccoons came out in the middle of the night and started eating those apples. I watched them, followed them to their den, and they didn't die. They didn't even seem sick. So I thought maybe those apples aren't poisonous for raccoons. But I kept watching the tree, and a week later, I saw some squirrels gnawing on the apples, and they didn't get sick either. So you know what else I thought? Maybe those apples really aren't poisonous after all. Maybe poison doesn't have to grow from poison. Not always. This tree, I think, just maybe it grew the way it wanted to grow. Those seeds, they were stronger than the magic. Without warning, Bork took a bite of the apple. I snatched it and threw it away. What are you doing? He chewed and swallowed, and we waited. My heart pounded as I thought at any moment Bork was going to drop dead. He smacked his lips and grimaced. Ugh. Surely the poison was sinking in now. Not as good as sludge, he said. Well, I just thought that might be useful to you. You could think about it. Think about what? I said. The things you know that you don't know you know. You're not so bright compared to a troll, but you're a crumb smarter than most humans. Thank you, I said, but I'm not sure I understand. You humans always talk about the magic and destiny like it's the most powerful thing in the world, like it controls you. Doesn't it? I guess it does if you want it to. Maybe it does other humans, but you, Rump? You were born with magic. I can smell it stronger on you than on any magical object I've ever found, even stronger than this tree. But that's the problem, I said. It's the magic that caused all this trouble. Just like all those things in your hoard caused trouble. I can't do anything about it. It's the people who cause the trouble, Rump, not the magic itself. If you're so full of magic, why should you be helpless? I don't know. I felt dizzy with confusion. Bork handed me the torch. Think about it. It's not so hard. And he walked back into the trees. Everything was cold and quiet now, except for the crackle of the torch. I stared at the apple tree. I still couldn't believe Bork ate one. Maybe that poison didn't work on trolls. Maybe it only worked on princesses. Or maybe Bork was right. Those seeds were stronger than the magic. I'm not a tree. I was born with a name, and that name is my destiny. Rumple has me wrapped and trapped. It controls me. My destiny controls me. But then a new question entered my mind. What is destiny? I knew that everyone had one, just as they had a name, and they were one and the same. Just as no person chooses their own name, no person chooses their own destiny. It isn't up to them. But what if it wasn't so? If Red's granny said that I must find my destiny, doesn't that mean I have some say in where to look? Maybe destiny isn't something that just happens. Maybe destiny is something you do. Maybe destiny is like a seed and it grows. It wasn't powerless. Even with my name, even with all the snares and tangles, I could do things like spin straw into gold and make terrible mistakes that ended up with girls being carried to their doom and promised being their first child. That was all part of my destiny. My name is Rumple. My name means I am bound, but I can grow more powerful than those bindings. I am more than a name. I have always known. Deep inside, I have a power that no one can take away from me, a deep magic more powerful than any magic placed upon me, a magic that I was born with, that grew inside me deep in my bones, a Stiltskin. I am a Rumple. I am a Stiltskin. Rumple, Stiltskin. I pictured my mother holding me in her arms, dying, ready to give me a name that would overpower all the magic that had trapped her. She whispered it to me. It was a name that would make me everything I am now. No one else had ever heard about me. My name is my destiny. My name is my power. Rumple, Stiltskin. I heard mother's whisper reaching across years and mountains and valleys. Rumple, Stiltskin. Rumpelstiltskin. The name, my name, shook in my chest. It traveled through my brain and down my arms and fingertips to my legs and toes. The sound of it echoed so loud inside of me, I felt like I would burst. I had a rhyme then and there, a rhyme full of powerful words to release it into the black night. Tomorrow I'm free. Today I'm alive. The curses and tangles no longer survive. From deep within, the wisdom came that Rumpelstiltskin is my name. I was a Stiltskin, and the power was greater than the Rumple. I felt it now, all inside of me, as if just saying my name out loud had unleashed a force, and it was unwrapping me from the tangles, ready to rip them apart. I picked an apple from the tree and took a bite, sweet juice filling my mouth. I am more powerful than a tree, I shouted into the night, and I laughed and I danced. A flickering shadow caught my eye, and I froze mid-laugh. Frederick stepped from behind a tree into clearing, his arms trembling as he held up a bow and arrow. Don't move, he said. Come out, Bruno. He kicked out his brother, who squealed and slid out from behind another tree, holding his spear tight to his chest. He was white as the moon and shaking so hard, it was as if some outside force were throttling him. Don't move, Frederick said again, pointing his bow and arrow at me. You have to come back with this. You still have to spin all the gold, or your friend is going to get hurt. You're going to get hurt. Frederick took a step forward. Bruno took a step back and whimpered, mumbling, trolls, filthy trolls, cursed trolls. I dropped my apple. I wasn't afraid of Frederick and Bruno anymore. They looked pathetic and small, quivering with their weapons. I was amazed that I had ever been afraid of them, had ever allowed them to bully me. But I also realized I wasn't free yet. I had found my name. I still felt it inside of me. The magic of my Stiltskin was still rushing through my arms and legs and brain, making me big and powerful. But the Rumple hadn't untangled yet. Red was still trapped in the castle. There was still the miller to face. I still had Archie with me, and no one could untangle it all but me. He found his name, guys. Rumpelstiltskin. He's the Stiltskin. All right, join me next week for the end of the book. Oh, it's been so much fun reading to you guys. I'll give you a little hint. Chapter 31 is Third Day's the Charm. Keep reading, guys. I'll see you next time.